iron deficiency in hair loss, or anemia in hair loss. Is it affecting you? What do you do about it? Let's talk about it. Iron deficiency and hair loss, or anemia and hair loss. This is one of those items that I feel as though in the hair loss world, people just straight up overlook the vast majority of the time. There are so many cases that I've run into that somebody has tried everything. They've tried minoxidil, they've tried Propecia, they've tried, PRP or vitamins or whatnot, and nothing worked. And essentially they end up in my office and I do our very standard blood tests, ferritin, vitamin D3 blood type, and it comes back that their ferritin is low, and their ferritin is their iron storage protein. And if that's low, and what I mean by low is essentially less than optimal, that can be a massive influence in the loss of hair and essentially prevent you from growing hair back. And so when you're looking at everything, people think of just iron, but they have to think of ferritin because ferritin is your iron storage protein. So to get a little bit more involved in this, iron is a vital substance for our body. Without it, we cannot live. It is the 70% of what actually makes up hemoglobin, which is our red blood cells. It transports oxygen throughout the entire body. And collectively, we have to have a pretty substantial amount of iron in our diet to keep our bodies working properly. And when we are looking at this scenario for hair loss, we have two major blood tests that we look for to understand how iron or ferritin is influencing your hair. So realistically, I like to use a checking and savings account analogy because your body utilizes iron essentially to build tissue or to essentially pay its bills, so to speak, in creating muscle tissue, creating these red blood cells, creating enzymes and proteins throughout your entire body to keep you alive. And that is actually what's pulled from what I call your iron checking account or your serum iron. And that goes to actively pay all those bills. Well, you have to have a savings account because on a rainy day when you need iron in this case, then you need to pull from somewhere. And that savings account is called ferritin. And ferritin is what actually matters when it comes to your hair, because when your ferritin decreases, your body knows that that is something that is problematic. So when that ferritin starts to diminish, your body starts going, okay, well, we gotta cut some expenses somewhere. And what your body does is it cuts one of the most rapidly dividing cells on your body, which is your hair. So it can easily diminish the output of hair to compensate for this lower ferritin because obviously it needs to maintain this high level of iron bioavailability. So that's what happens is when ferritin gets reduced, you end up pulling from your hair to make sure that you have enough iron to keep you alive, to keep your immune system going, to rebuild all of those tissues that are constantly needing maintenance on basically a daily basis. So through all of that, you must have enough serum iron all the time for life, and then obviously enough ferritin for your hair as well as obviously to be storage for other tissues. So when you're going to get a blood test, oftentimes your standard blood test is simply not going to give you the information you need to know if ferritin or iron is influencing your hair. You must get a serum iron blood test and a ferritin blood test to know exactly where you're at. You might have some additional symptoms that would allow you to key into that. If your iron is very low, you're also going to have symptoms like bruising easily, fatigue, lightheadedness. You're also going to run into potentially heart palpitations. But if your ferritin is low, you might not have any of those or any of those physical symptoms. You might just have hair loss. So again, that's why you need to get both of those blood tests. Each individual is going to have a little bit of a different daily requirement of iron based on their lifestyle factors. But some key demographics that are going to have more demands for iron would be a menstruating female. As soon as a woman obviously begins to menstruate, losing that a very large amount of blood on a monthly basis becomes a key factor, an overwhelming need for iron. Because when you lose that blood, you're actually going to end up pulling from your ferritin stores to rebuild all of those red blood cells that you just lost. So, and if that's happening over and over and over again, it can easily diminish ferritin. Most of the females that I see in their teens, they're actually losing hair due to ferritin or iron issues. Now, men or non-menstruating females have a lower requirement for iron. Typically, they're going to have somewhere around 8 to 10 milligrams per day that's needed, or 3 times less than a menstruating female. Either way, there are other things that could increase your demands for iron. Working out vigorously, so weight training, you could be doing an extensive amount of cardio, which would also lead to a high demand on iron. Either way, you must keep up your blood levels to make sure that you have at least 70 nanograms per milliliter of ferritin in your blood to actually have the appropriate volume of hair on your head. If it's less than that, your body's probably pulling volume from your hair to compensate for the lack of iron circulating throughout your body. So always make sure that you get those blood tests and get those up. Now, there's other things that may increase your demands for iron as well. There are medications that will actually cause lack of absorption of iron. Blood thinners are one of those. Another one are proton pump inhibitors or acid reflux meds. When it comes to proton pump inhibitors, they block the absorption of iron. So if you're on those, you definitely need to pay attention to that. Additionally, if you're limiting animal protein in any way, a vegetarian or a vegan, you most certainly are a substantial candidate for low ferritin, which is then leading to a diminishment of hair. And you will have to compensate with something like our Derma iron or really any iron supplement to get your iron up. That's obviously going to be gentle on your gut and supportive of your hair. Some of the other things that may be an influencing factor are coffee consumption and tea consumption. These are actually very high in tannins, and tannins will actually bind to non-heme iron and block your absorption of that in your gut as well. So many different things play a role in blocking the absorption of iron, and realistically, you want to get as much iron in that you need for your hair. One of the ways to do that is to consume high levels of bioavailable iron. Bioavailable iron is going to be best suited as red meat. So for those people who might be vegan or vegetarian, obviously I realize that's bad news, but iron coming from animal sources is 10 times more absorbable than from plant sources. So it's just how our bodies work. Now, if you obviously are not consuming red meat, then you have to compensate for it. I also find that O blood types and B blood types have higher requirements for red meat or for iron than A blood types, which actually seem to be more suitable for a little bit lower ferritin levels because they're more of a natural vegetarian. So collectively, when you look at all of that, you need to make sure, again, that you're getting enough iron, which then means you're gonna have enough ferritin. So what do you do if your ferritin is low or if your iron is low? Well, obviously you must compensate for that. 1, you can change your diet, get more red meat in your diet. 2, you can supplement. And supplementing, I'm gonna recommend a product called Derma Iron, which is actually the only to date bioavailable iron specifically for your hair and skin. It uses a very highly absorbable iron supplement called Ferritin, as well as it uses vitamin C as an accompaniment to increase your absorption of iron, as well as fish or marine collagen to help support, obviously, the rehabilitation of the proteins. So collectively, that is one item that taking 1 or 2 of those per day will at least stabilize your iron, or 2 will potentially increase your iron and then thus increasing your ferritin storage. And then there's another supplement called Ferritin, and this is simply glandular ferritin, that if you do have low ferritin, you absolutely need to take 2 pills in the morning, 2 at night, which is approximately 10 milligrams in the morning and 10 milligrams at night for up to 6 months to trick your body into thinking that your ferritin is higher than it is now. Because ferritin is cumulative in your bloodstream and will take time to increase. So you don't actually see the benefits of ferritin or the iron absorption until your ferritin is incrementally coming up. So by taking glandular ferritin, you're tricking your body into thinking that your ferritin is higher than it is earlier on, thus improving your overall hair growth sooner. So most of the time I will actually have individuals on ferritin, the glandular ferritin, for up to 6 months, and then I will pull them off of that and then keep them on a maintenance mode. either with the Derma Iron or simply with another supplement that has the appropriate daily requirement for them. Now, most of the time it's gonna be 10 milligrams per day, but if you're a menstruating female or you have extremely high demands, physicality, again, through cardio or through weight training, you may have as much of a need as 28 to 35 milligrams per day. So I hope that gave you a lot of understanding on what's going on and its relation to iron and hair. And I hope that if you need anything in relation to that, please feel free to reach out to us. We can give you a protocol and better understand exactly how you might be influenced by ferritin or by low iron. And collectively, please, if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like this, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel and know that we are vested in your hair growth experience, and I'm personally happy to help in any way.